And welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. They are Tennessee's biggest locally owned, East Tennessee's biggest locally owned pest control company. While other companies have been selling out to bigger companies, from a national perspective, Southeast Termite and Pest Control has remained a family-owned operation since it opened in 1971. It makes a difference, folks. I use these guys. If I pick up the phone and say, hey, I spotted a spider, and I'm giving you an example, I wouldn't call for one spider. It would take two. But if I spot one thing and give them a call, they are there immediately. They turn around and come right over. They're fantastic. Just good people, good company. Southeast Termite and Pest Control. SoutheastTermite.com. Okay. Like I said, Auburn just went through an ugly coaching search after firing Gus Malzahn. They had fans get involved on social media. Boosters pushed for one candidate over another when there was factions that kind of divided on that thing. They dealt with a number of apparent turndowns, guys who said no. But for anybody who wants to compare it to what Tennessee went through three years ago, no. This was junior high, and that was advanced. That was like your doctorate in screwing up a search. So it was ugly, though. They wound up with Bryan Harsin, who's had a good run at Boise State. He had replaced Gus Malzahn at Arkansas State, where he had served before that. Thoughts on Tennessee, though? There are people who believe that, well, just get rid of Pruitt and we'll go find somebody. Don't know who it is. Anybody's better than Pruitt. Auburn had a little egg on their face, and I don't know if they're jumping up and down over Bryan Harsin. Maybe they are. But would Tennessee have similar response to their search? Do you expect Tennessee to have a smoother search than Auburn went through if Tennessee makes a move? Or would you expect Tennessee to wind up with as good a coach as Bryan Harsin if they made a move? Jimmy, you got a look on your face. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say history doesn't support that it's going to be a really good search, right?
Right.
I mean, they just hadn't had many of them. And in fact, if as I think back, you got to go back. Well, okay, so Fulmer was the first choice, and he was promoted as an offense coordinator back in '92, whatever. Lane Kiffin was the first choice of Hamilton. Butch Jones and Derek Dooley were way down the list when they were hired as far as the choices for Tennessee. And so was Pruitt.
Yeah.
So you got three in a row that didn't go very well. I would say I wouldn't expect anything to be great. And then it doesn't matter who you hire, you're going to have some griping among your fan base, right?
Sure.
There's not a consensus of anybody out there, in my opinion. If you hire Hugh Freeze, a bunch of them say great, and then a bunch say, what are you doing hiring a guy that cheated in the NCAA? So I don't see an easy deal here.
I would also think that Tennessee would struggle more. At least Auburn has a better history of hiring and firing coaches for right now. This is the fifth coach in like 40 years. This would be Tennessee's fifth coach in 13 years, I think, and that's got to play a role.
Pat Dye, Terry Bowden, Chiswick got a short run down there.
Yeah, Tuberville, Chiswick
left on his own. Yeah.
So I mean, I think Tennessee, if you make the move now, you do work yourself into a corner. You may need to make the move, but if you make another one, is somebody going to sit out there and say, why do I want to take that job when I know 3 years from now I'm probably going to be in trouble?
Josh, it's a tough job to sell, I would think. I mean, it was obviously a tough sell last time. Clearly, after the Schiano thing, your candidates dried up. Then you wound up and had to go battling for assistants or choosing between assistants. I would anticipate if you fire this guy, as you mentioned last week, if you fire a guy with cause or for cause, coaches are going to pay attention to that. Wait a second. They weaseled out of the last contract for the last guy. I don't think this is as good a job as a lot of folks think, which has been proven out time and again, but a lot of people don't want to hear that.
Yeah, that a lot of Tennessee fans think.
Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, you asked would it be smoother than the Auburn job, and it just makes me laugh because, I mean, think about all the rumors that we could list off with an internal investigation in UT's own compliance department, then add a coaching search to it, and then keep pushing time forward. And when Lane Kiffin left, we're not there yet in terms of the timing, but we're not that far off now. We're about to be into January. If that's when this would take place, I think what you would also have is you'd have a lot of coaches out there that see a desperate Tennessee and would say, hey, agent, get on the phone, start calling people, get me a raise. You'll see Tennessee linked to a bunch of coaches. And you just replace groomers with humors in this case. So would it be 2017? It's going to take a lot to make a run at that, but it could at least get interesting.
Yeah, and for all the people who are saying it would be an easier hire, it would be the perfect hire because Hugh Freeze is right there. He's the guy. I still don't know that the University of Tennessee would go get Hugh Freeze.
And-
Whether you want them to or not, I don't know that the powers. But now go back to segment 2 of our show when we went through all the different factions. Who was he playing a role? Is he playing a role? How big's his role? What about her role? What's their role? Now throw in how many of those people have to agree on Hugh Freeze to bring him in here. I don't know that Tennessee makes that move.
I don't either.
It actually fits the next segment better.
Okay,
I'll
we'll
wait.
do that. Very good. When we come back, we'll bring out the last member of our panel. Somebody else is joining us. We're going to go to basketball shortly, but I want to do one more segment. A lot of people have been telling me recently, I've heard a lot in the last 2 weeks, Tennessee will never get back to where they were. Okay, I want to see if these guys agree with that. Long-term damage to the program, what is their level of concern? Come on back on the Sports Zone.